G'day, fuckheads! We have some sad news today, cunts. Another one of my videos got age restricted, which is the same as getting demonetized, except you actually have to log in to watch it, so it's probably worse, to be honest. This was because recently I've been putting some big titty Warhammer hentai in all my videos. So I can't say I'm surprised, but here's the dealio. Patrons still get access to all the naughtiness. However, I will have to tone it down in terms of titty content a bit in the YouTube videos. YouTube, a company that pays me to abuse everyone, but freaks out at censored cartoon. Love it. Anywho, all this talk about titties and money has really got my dick wet, so to relieve myself, we're going to be talking about everyone's favourite fetish, the Dwarves. Now the Dwarves, or the Dawi as they like to call themselves mid-climax, which is, all the time, are more than just glorified midgets, although I could see how you get confused. These short cunts don't take shit from no one, especially cop gobblers shorter than them. On a side note, imagine being smaller than a fucking dwarf. Like, their name literally means little cunt, so they have a pretty good excuse. But if you're a goblin or a skaven or some shit, and had to look up to a dwarf, you'd want to neck yourself. I genuinely think I would just OD my fucking brains out on warpstone out of pure embarrassment. This is honestly probably why the skaven and goblins hate dwarves so much, because they're smaller than them. Short man syndrome, it's a dangerous thing. Anywho, we'll be talking about the dwarves' origin, some of their key characters, as well as their culture and their gods. Then we'll put on our condoms and hazmat suits to avoid getting AIDS, as we talk about what happens to the dwarves during the shitfest that is the end times. Then we'll open our dick with a sword and fuck our own faces as we briefly cover what they're going up to in Age of Sigmar. Let's get into it. The Dawi are an ancient, proud race who, like all the do-goodies in the world, were created by the Old Ones at the dawn of time. It is said that the dwarves were carved from stone and given life, hence that's why they're a bunch of fucking nerds that like rocks. Obviously this is not what happened because that's fucking retarded, but to be fair, I am Australian and apparently kangaroos are just people who had boomerangs thrown at them thousands of years ago, so I can't really judge. Anywho, the dwarves were kinda neglected by the Old Ones. Can't really blame them. Like, if you're a god, would you focus on your dinosaurs and magical tall elf people, or would you focus on your deformed midget kid? It wasn't a hard choice. As a result, the dwarves spent many years as a primitive race that lived in caves and picked berries and shit. The Dwarven gods were present at this time, but they were too busy trying to figure out what the fuck to do as a god to be of much help. Eventually the gods came down to lend a hand and led their people to migrate north. Grungi taught the dwarves the art of crafting and Grimnir taught them the war, which allowed them to expand and create a massive empire throughout the old world. Eventually they reached the World's Edge Mountains, which was like a Zootopia, genuinely full of gold and gromril and other nice shit. As a result of this discovery, the dwarves set up shop and began building their karaks, which is a deformed midget word for glorified cave. The dwarves were they were going everywhere. They were in Norska, they went near Bretonia, they went in the south. Like, when you pop open a game of Total War Warhammer, you can see that the dwarves are all over the shop. Well, in this golden age they were experiencing, imagine all the greenskin bases in the mountains were actually owned by dwarves, and you would have a good idea about how big their kingdom dick was. They called their empire the karaz-a-karak, which roughly translates to the rock-raping realm, because they were just penetrating the fuck out of mountains 24/7. Anywho, as we know by now, the Old Ones fucked up and chaos flooded the world. Grungi was suspicious that shit was going to go down, so he sealed off the dwarven holds, so that when shit did hit the fan, the dwarves were hiding underground. After a while, they popped out to have a look at how the world was, but found it being anal raped by monsters and demons and shit, so Grungi figured out how to make big ass axes and also how to use runes. Hence, Grimnir gathered up all his stunties and went off to try and save the world. Along the way, they bumped into Kalidor Dragon Tamer and became mates, which was pretty cute. And then the Madmen actually did it. They beat back Chaos out of the old world at a similar time that Anarian fucked Chaos out of Ulthuan, and Lord Croak fisted them in Lustria. All was looking pretty good, but then it suddenly wasn't looking so good as a second and significantly more powerful Chaos invasion began. The dwarves started losing ground even with Grimnir, their literal god of war, commanding them. Hence Grimnir was like, "Oi cunts, I have an idea. I'm gonna go to the Chaos Gate and just shut it. I'm just gonna fucking just shut it." And Grungi was like, "What the fuck? That is retarded. Why would you even attempt that, you fuckwit?" And then Grimnir was like, "Eat my ass, you little bitch." So Grimnir took a band of his best warriors, including his godson, or godson as in his son is a god, Morgrim, north of the Chaos Waste to try and shut the gate. Just as they were nearing the gate, Grimnir told his followers to go home because this was a high level area, and none of them were a high enough level, except Grimnir. He then gave one of his axes to Morgrim, and then he went to the gate. Now, Grimnir is a great warrior, but unfortunately you can't just slay a gate, so Grimnir did the next best thing. He fucking jumped in and just went in the realm of chaos and he just blocked the gate and he just started killing demons trying to enter non-stop. which he continued to do so for thousands of years. So that is one band-aid solution for chaos, I'll give him that. Anywho, the Slan and the Elves worked their magic, created the Vortex, and banished chaos from the world. For the most part. Yay! Now, this all sounds hunky-dory, but the Dwarfs of the East were a bunch of fuckwits and became the Chaos Dwarves, and then the Skaven also popped up, who, as we know, are one of the Dwarves' greatest enemies. In regards to what happened to the Dwarven gods after Chaos yeeted the fuck out, Grimnir remained in the realms of Chaos while Grungi, Morgrim, Valea, and the other gods that no one cares about went deep into the mountain and entered this god gate to have a snooze, which is probably fair enough considering they've been hard carrying the dwarf race for quite a while. The axe that Grimnir gave to his son Morgrim became the official axe of the High Kings, so that's the axe that Thorgrim uses, or used, while the other axe vanished for a while and was eventually discovered by everyone's favourite stunty, Gotrek. Happy days, you know, everyone is chilling, the High Elves set up some colonies in the old world, there was probably some kinky interracial sex at some point between the two races, like, I see that on the internet all the time, so I'd assume that in 2,000 years it would have happened at least once. Anywho, the elves who have their little shit fit and split up between the High Elves and the new Dark Elves, unfortunately, due to the High Elves being a bit embarrassed by this whole affair, they neglected to tell their Dawi allies about the new Dark Elf situation. Hence, when Malekith wanted to stir up some shit, he decided it would be a good idea to dress his soldiers up as High Elves and get them to raid Dwarven caravans and settlements. This turned out to be a great idea by him, because due to the current High Elf King, Kalador, being a massive fuckwit, it was really easy to start a war between them. However, I've already covered the War of the Beard in detail, so if you want to find out what happened in detail when the High Elves and Dwarves went to all-out war, then you can check that out. After the conclusion of the War of the Dwarves and the Beard and the shit, they were a bit dusty due to all the death and whatnot, but there was peace. Kidding! No there wasn't, as this is Warhammer we're talking about. The title of the fucking franchise is a weapon of war, there is no such thing as peace. Surely after the conclusion of the War of the Beards, one of two things occurred, you can pick whichever one you find funnier. Option A. Mazdamundi found an old map of the world that the old ones created, and he realised that the mountain ranges in the old world were slightly misaligned, so he used his super slan mind rate powers to rearrange the tectonic plates. This was bad news for the dwarves who were quite comfortable with the mountains being the way they were. The shift in the tectonic plates caused massive earthquakes that sundered the entire kingdom, breaking open the holds and allowing a massive invasion of greenskins to pour into dwarven kingdoms. Or option B. The Skaven were surprisingly been irresponsible with warpstone again and accidentally left off a massive underground nuke which fucked themselves up and also fucked up the Dwarven Empire by causing massive earthquakes, splitting open the holds and allowing a massive invasion of greenskins to pour into the Dwarven kingdom. Now, imagine at this point that the Dwarven Empire is a raw bloody asshole that is hemorrhoided due to the big old war with the elves. Then imagine that that bleeding hemorrhoid got salt and lemon sprayed onto it, which would be, either option A or B disaster. Then finally, the greenskin invasion is like a big old gonorrhea-fueled Shrek dick that has been forcefully shoved into a bloody hemorrhoided salty sour asshole. This is what the Dwarven Kingdom was going through. During this hopefully metaphorical anal pounding, the humans arrived in the old world with their permission of the High King at the time. They then vanished into the forest to do their own shit, which was a bit unhelpful, but oh well. The dwarves lost hold after hold. Ekron was lost to the greenskins while the Skaven took down Karak 8-peats. This mass loss of territory also led to a regression of dwarven technology. The Dawi were well and truly screwed. Even when they allied with the humans and gave them weapons and shit, they were still getting fucked on. But then, Murder Jesus arrived and took the orcs to Pound Town. He pulled the infected Shrek dick from the dwarves' wounded asshole and he bit it off and he spat it back at the orcs. That's not a metaphor, that's canon. The dwarves were like, holy fuck, who is this guy? He can literally beat massive orcs to death with his bare hands. So the king was like, fuck me mate, take this warhammer and sort some shit out. So Murder Jesus took the hammer, also called Galmaraz, and sorted some shit out. AKA he won a big battle in which so many greenskins were genocided it would take them over 1,000 years to recoup their population. Motherfucking Murder Jesus. Hence, the Silver Age of the Dwarves begun. They figured out how to make guns, so their Second Amendment right came back into full swing. They retook a lot of their old territory back, as despite the greenskins still being scary, their technology had not really evolved, whilst the Dawi now had cannons, grenades, flamethrowers, and lots of guns, so that went as well as expected. The dwarves were massive bros to the Empire as well. They taught them how to make good steel, which didn't suck ass, and they also how to make their own guns. They also taught man how to make beer, which didn't suck, so as an Australian I can really get behind this progressive society. Anywho, Chaos got a bit horny again and invaded the world. This time, it was a lot less demony and more Norskin-y due to the vortex still swallowing the winds of magic like a Thai ladyboy swallows MajorKill's cum. The Dwarven High King once again got out his bro dick and came to help the Empire, and they won again. However, the big fella had copped some grievous wounds and was slowly dying. Also, he forgot to fuck his wife or something, because he had no heir to his throne. That's all good though, because Thorgrim out of nowhere comes in hot and gives a rousing speech about how they should kill lots of greenskins, which is enough to get every stunty dick in the room erect. Hence, Thorgrim became the new High King. He went off to a good start as well, retook some shit and killed some shit. His big test, however, was attempting to take back Karak 8 Peaks. Hence, he helped out Belegar Ironhammer, but the 8 Peaks were just a fucking shit show, and it never really got reclaimed. And there we are for the Dwarves' history, one big roller coaster ranging from the Lords of the Old World to the Greenskins' fleshlight. Now we can talk about Dwarven women and their reproduction. Like most non-chaos factions, the Dwarves reproduce through having sexy time. Dwarves are extremely stocky, which just supports their stubborn personalities. The women are similarly built to the men, however they are described as being curvy as fuck. Very nice. The women also don't grow beards, thankfully, so instead of showing their age and wisdom through beard length like the men do, they show it off via their hair length and amount of braids they can have in their pubes. Onto the topic of beards. A dwarf's beard is his most valuable asset. It shows their rank, wealth, experience, sexual libido, age, and lots of other things. Basically, the longer the beard, the longer the Dawi dick. Hence, when you cut off a Dawi beard, you're basically cutting off his dick and committing the ultimate disrespect. Cutting off a Dawi's beard is like the equivalent of cutting off a hillbillies from their guns. They'll lose their shit and try and kill you. Or they'll just get frustrated and fuck their daughter again. I don't know, I tend to avoid them when I can. The dwarves are technologically advanced. They have excelled in steampunk and gunpowder technology as well as having flying gunships. Despite this, however, it can be argued that the Skaven have surpassed the dwarves, mainly because the Skaven don't have ethical barriers or safeguards in place and are more than happy to experience catastrophic failure in the name of science. The Lizardmen tech though shits on both these factions, because niggas can fly to space. If I had to compare the dwarves to one real life country, I would honestly say Australia, for one reason only. The Dawi have incredibly strong livers, which means that when they drink a beer it nourishes them. A Dawi can live for months on beer without suffering much malnutrition, just like an Australian. Notable current Dawi characters include Thotgrim Grudgebearer. Despite being a great warrior and the High King, he's a lazy bitch that gets carried around everywhere. It's kinda hard to seem epic when you have to awkwardly swing at cunts from the top of your big ass chair. Then we have Ungrim Childfist. He's the king of slayers who just wants to fucking die. That's why I actually respect suicidal Dawi. They don't complain about shit, they just go out and kill shit until they die. Sadly for Ungrim, he kills everything he fights, so he's yet to be granted his 72 virgins in the afterlife. Until he literally Allah Akbar, the shit, that probably would have done it, to be honest. That's probably why he picked suicide bombing as his way to go. Then we have Belegar Iron Balls. This tough guy has brains and balls made of steel, because he's brave, but he's also a fucking idiot. His desperation to retake Karat 8 Peaks has cost the already endangered dwarves thousands of lives, and they don't really have much to show for it. Then we have Gotrek Plot Armor. I couldn't really think of a clever way to spin his name, not that my previous efforts were clever, but you know what I mean. If you thought Ungrim was having a tough time dying, then check out this guy. Armed with nothing but his Slayer Oath, a trusty sidekick, and the axe of a god, this angry motherfucker has rampaged through the old world, killing demons, Skaven, beastmen as if he was an F-22 Raptor saying adios to a village in a third world country. Seriously though, this guy becomes the next Dawi god of war, so he's pretty spicy. Then we have Grombrindle, the White Dwarf, because let's be honest, who the fuck has ever seen a black dwarf? This avatar of vengeance was a product of Snowy Whitebeard being a beast, and Malekith being a fucking oathbreaker. He comes in the dwarf's time of need, to bring down the pain train against anyone who isn't white or has a beard. Now that I think of it, the dwarves are actually really racist, but everyone in Warhammer is, so it's not really worth mentioning. There's a few other stunties that we, have some cute shit, but in terms of keeping it short and sweet, we'll just stick with those ones. Why are there no prominent Dawi women, I hear no one ask? Trick question, there's no such thing as a prominent woman. Or in the case of my channel's viewership, there's no such thing as women at all. Now for the fun part, aka the end times, aka Games Workshop's late term aborted fetus. The dwarves had their moments, and by moments I mean they got fucked on pretty bad. See, the unification of the Skaven combined with Skarsnik and Neferata invading meant that the already roughed up dwarves had their fair share of shit to deal with. Karak 8 Peaks got gangbanged in a three-way battle between dwarves, Skaven and goblins, which resulted in the death of Belegar Ironhammer due to him deciding it'd be cool to try and take on an endless tide of Skaven with just 300 men and a couple of cannons. Queek Headtaker literally lived up to his name as he cut off old mate Belegar's head. On a positive note though, Thorgrim did then ironically cut off Queek's head, so karma is indeed a bitch. The Dwarves turned an Anvil of Doom into a makeshift nuke to fuck on Neferata, which kind of worked, but kind of didn't, because the undead are pretty endless as well. Nagash ate most of the Dwarven gods, which is another kick to the balls for our already raped Dawi. To make matters worse, even Thorgrim then got decapitated by Deathmaster Schnichter, or however you pronounce that cunt's name, so they've lost 2 out of their 3 kings already. Ungrim becomes a low-key fire god, but that doesn't last long because he Allah Akbars on some corn cunts. Makes Isis look like a bunch of wannabes, but as a result, he dies. So bam, the end times is halfway through and all the Dawi kings are dead. However, Grombrindal goes sicko mode and comes out and fucks shit up, which is nice. He fights back to back with Gotrek and Bugman in the final battle with Mindenheim, and gets fucked on when the world explodes. However, I would expect him to soon return to Age of Sigmar, because it's Grombrindal, the dude's a beast. In Age of Sigmar, our little fellas, now called the Duradin due to Games Workshop getting their dick wet from copywriting everything that they can, haven't done a great deal yet. Grimnir reappeared and then instantly died, killing a salamander god. Grungy helped old mate Sigmar build the Sigmarines, so that's pretty neat. Most other Dawi reside in the realm of metal, living a similar life what they did in the old world. However, they have 2 pretty cool new factions. One is called the Fire Slayers, who are like Slayers except shit, because they have no real sense of honor and ethics or oaths beyond gold. Like, these cunts will fight for the Chaos if Chaos pays them enough. And then we have the Caradron Overlords, who are actually quite original. They are a faction of airborne steampunk dwarves who specialise in flying. They're probably the most fleshed out of the Duradin factions because they probably make the most money. We'll probably cover them in the future because I like flying things. Okay, now that I survived the cancer that is Age of Sigmar, we can wrap this bad boy up. We've talked about the Dawi culture and gods as well as their history and what ends up happening to them, all within a reasonable time frame, unlike every other cunt that likes to make Warhammer videos. If you want to see the Dawi thought completely uncensored, then all you have to do is send me $1 or more on Patreon and you get that plus dozens of other not suitable for work or any real situation artwork. Highly recommend. Join the Discord for memes and subscribe for more fuckery. Peace.